motivations, we gotta wait. What? Took a little minute, was patient, but now we take it. Anytime we want in this game, my situation is entertainment intertwined with information. Alchemist soul, how we move the tassel and roll. It's amazing how we can turn something brass to gold. And we steady making hits. Architect with the prop in the scripts. It's logical that the product will flip. My boy Chef did the lineup. I'm fresh in the bitch. Carnivorous podcast, the newest show on the list. DQ on the boat, so I'm rocking the ship. While the music gon' be dope and the artist legit. Hold my beard, concrete cord, then stepped in the door. See, that's my man and he reppin' for show. And true savior's a player with flavor. Lexicon Taylor, lines on point like a laser. We need that paper, we building the vault. Cause you niggas don't listen, y'all be waiting to talk. Lack accountability and try to make it our fault. But opposing us is trying to arm wrestle the hawk. You coming up short on your re-up, nigga we up. Really wouldn't want to be up. I kick my feet up. My beef is wagyu and my truck is all speakers. Bills is all blue and my blunt is all reefer. With possible deniability, that boy eater. High quality whack juice by the liter. They like to call us ops, we got Oppenheimer features. That's the bomb out on the island just to teach
you. Yo, what's up, y'all? Man, I had a little technical difficulties, man. Sorry about the late start. Wasn't much I can do about it. I done went through everything I could in my system to try to prevent it. But it's all good, man. I feel like this was an important show. I wanted to be able to bring it to the people. I definitely think this is a worthwhile conversation. And there's been a lot of stuff, right, to be updated on as far as the candidates and where the whole conversations are actually going in both directions, right? It's been really interesting looking at Trump and some of the things that he offers, looking at Kamala, some of the stuff that she offers. It's been really, really interesting. And I wanted to put on a purple shirt today so I could be right down, kind of in the middle of both sides, right? I want to be able to bring a non-biased point of view. Me personally, my personal sentiments are going to be Democratic, right? Those are the party lines that I tend to lean towards as far as policy wise. Their policies are more about they're more about paying a little bit more taxes but having more programs, right? They want to have they want to be able to cater towards lower income, which is going to be a large part. Black people are going to represent that demographic in a very large way. And I think that when you make policies that are geared to help people in those those lower income situations, I like that idea as raising the floor of the economy, right? I think if those people are motivated to get up and go to work, right, I think the rest of the machine flows very seamlessly. That's my idea, right? The Republican side is that the people at the top are having a little bit of an easier time, then they'll have more opportunity to create jobs for those lower income people, right? They'll have, if you give them bigger tax breaks, less regulations, then they can make life easier for those lower income people that are working for them, right? Interesting dynamic, right? There's some good and bad on both sides. There is some, broken promises on both sides. Let's be completely honest. Now, with that being said, when you really look at it, though, and Hits, if you can hear me, one thing I want you to do before you leave is pin the link actually in the stream, in the chat. That way, like, I can actually bring people up when it's time, and you won't have to worry about doing it a little bit later. That's something that I can do. And peace, y'all. What's up, man? What's up, Cuban? Appreciate you showing up, man. But yeah, let me get back to it, right? So there's some pros and cons on both sides. I actually heard an economist which has become my favorite people to listen to when it comes to politics. I think that's like the real irony, right? It's always like you have these experts that um, or look for the accuracy in a lot of these statements that the politicians make, because if you're just sitting there and you don't really understand all the terms, it might sound like they're kind of getting over on you a little bit. That might get you real excited and you have no idea what the world is talking about. But the economists, we can't fool them, right? They know all these terms, right? They're familiar with all the levering, as far as if you do this over on this side, if you start producing more natural resources, and they understand what happens to the cost over on this side, or they understand what happens to other products that are entangled with energy and things like that. So those are my favorite people to listen to, right? But I feel like when I get what they're saying, I feel like I'm getting the insight of what the politician is trying to say or failing to say, right? That's why those economists have been my favorite person to listen to. So, and I heard one of them describe it as the sweet and the sour, right? In terms of the sour would be being higher taxes on corporations, right? And some, depending on the scenario, the sweet could be more jobs for lower income, right? Or you can say, you know, bigger tax breaks is for middle income people as a sour, or as a sweet. And then so if you, like, let's say if you have bigger tax breaks for middle income people, then you probably are going to have a higher regulations for those big businesses in order to afford the tax breaks for those middle income people. So like there's never a perfect scenario where both things are actually happening. You're actually going to have two things operating at the same time in order for you to make any of these type of changes, right? And that's been the big mystery out there, right? That's what CNN, that's what ABC, and all the other news stations have been reporting when they're talking about Kamala's policy, right? They've been asking her how is she going to pay for this stuff for weeks now, and she still hasn't really made it clear. She is making a lot of promises that are good selling points, right? As far as she wants to provide $6,000 worth of worth of uh, credit to people who are having like newborn babies, right? She wants to put a big decrease on middle income taxes. She wants to have $50,000 as far as startup businesses, but she also wants to tax people more, right? So on the short end of what her policies offer, she is offering, some incentives right up front. With the $25,000 first-time buyers program, right? These are big incentives right up front, but how will she pay for it? When you look into some of the other promises that she's made, is that she's looking to tax corporations for that. So yes, on one hand, the sweet would be if you start up a new business that you're going to get $50,000 to help your business start thriving right off the ground, but you'll pay some higher taxes on your profits at the end of the year. It's kind of a little bit of a give and take. So in order for her to afford giving you this one thing, she has to do it somewhere else. Trump, right? Trump's a little bit I wouldn't say more complicated, but it's a little bit more straightforward, as they say. Because his plan is to do 60% more tariffs on China and 10% on all the other countries that we're involved in with as far as imports. And there's some bittersweet to that, right? Those aren't all perfect, and they're not. I can't say not, because I did hear an economist today describe it as as you could use it as leverage, but he's the one, right? He was the one economist I ever heard describe using tariffs as leverage towards other countries, right? There's a scenario out there called the chicken war, right? And this was a war, a proxy war of sorts between America and Germany. And what's up, Brass? I see you out there, man. So the idea was that Germany was buying a lot of chickens from America, right? And some kind of way a tariff was put on the chickens, right? So the chickens went from about $1.50 to about $2.25. So their sales dropped tremendously in Germany. For a long time ago, that $1.50 or $1.25 would have been a big difference as far as how much it would have cost. And in turn, the America put a tariff on the Volkswagen truck, which actually was selling very well in the States, right? So it was like their way of getting back at each other. So, okay, y'all not going to buy our chickens, so we're going to make it hard for you to sell your vehicles over here, right? So in turn, both things actually wound up dropping into some degree, right? The tariff on chickens made it difficult for people in Germany to actually purchase those chickens. Now, I don't really understand how that's leveraged to me. It sounds like both of y'all lost, if you ask me. Because when you put that tariff on chickens, Germany isn't the one paying it. It's the company importing the good from the other country. So in this particular case, we wound up paying to have those German trucks imported. Right. So now you have to sell that German truck for a higher price, and your profit margins goes down, and less people buying it because there's probably more affordable options out there. So that, to me, that don't really sound like a win, right? That doesn't sound like you're controlling the market as much as it seems, right? Because the company on your turf is the one that's actually paying your government for the tariff. It's not the other way around. It's like if we put a tariff on China, then that means whatever company that imports goods from China pays a tax to the American government, and China is not paying a tax. American companies are paying the tax, and they're passing that on to American consumers. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but I've been looking at it all day, and that was about as simple as I know I can explain it, because Trump makes it sound like he is using it to bully China, and really he's kind of more so bullying the American industry that is importing goods from China. That was a realization for me. I couldn't believe that that's what the economists say the taxes are, right? So when Kamala, during her speeches, when she says that the Trump tariff is going to act more like a sales tax to Americans, she's making a strong point, right? She's making a really strong point. That's when my faith in Trump really started fading a lot. When I started hearing a lot of experts disagree with the way he was using the tariffs, that was the first thing that really worried me. And this is before he made comments, crazy comments that I know this conversation is going to start talking about. But before he even made those comments, the fact that experts can't move you off of that point, and you are using this tariffs the wrong way like that, nah. I don't want my president to be an economist, but I need him to at least respect what the economists are saying, right? If they're telling you in 10 years this is going to be a really, really bad plan, and they're telling you once you start tariffs, it's really hard to take them back, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. What's up, Brass? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I feel like you just set me up.
How so?
I feel like you just set me up.
I
You just
didn't.
had me. You just had you do that little damn that diatribe about how asinine the tariffs are, and then said, "Hey, Brass, how you doing? You got
I didn't set
you
you up.
got
I didn't
anything
set
you
you
want
up.
to say on that?"
I didn't set you up because what you missed. I didn't say anything that you wanted to say on that
Uh
because I
huh.
actually was really fair about it, right? Because I
Uh
went
huh.
over some of the stuff about Kamala and her. She wants to sound like she's giving away a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the whole time she's actually increasing taxes. Now, I mean, that can be good and bad. She's a Democrat, that's a part of the party lines is the increased taxes, but they increase taxes in order to have more programs and have bigger budgets for those programs. So, I mean, it's a little bit of give and take, right? Right.
Right.
I think you might have missed where I was doing it on both sides, right? You might have just came in when I was talking about Trump. I'm taking it
Um.
easy on Trump too right now, by the way.
No, you don't have to. First off, remember that anytime any president puts forth anything, first off, peace to the chat. Anytime any president does anything, it's not them per se doing it, and it's a very limited thought. We watch all these movies, Morgan Freeman and all of that, where you see the president making these sweeping decisions, and then the whole world moves moves forward with it. And then, but that's not really how it works. How it works is you 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 have people that put forth these ideas. Even Obama seems brilliant, but he doesn't sit there and come up with the whole thing with a pen and paper. I mean, these were economists that helped him come up with it. So any economists that are knocking what Trump did or what Trump tried to put forth, hold on one second. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Well, while we're waiting on Brass to
No, no,
come back.
I'm back.
Okay,
My
okay.
okay, but the so these are economists. So if economists are going against what he's saying, these are also economists that helped him put this together. So I'm gonna speak a little bit about the tariffs. Don't look when you look at the tariffs, and I'm not here to say whether they're right or wrong, but I'm just trying to see if you maybe take a different perspective on them. The tariffs weren't necessarily about yes, it could lead to higher costs. I get that. But it was more of a long-term play. Now you got to remember, each president is 4 years, so it's not like they get in office and they could do all of this stuff. But it was more of a strategy than a tactic. It was more a tactic than anything else. What we was trying to do was basically at the time, United States is used to being in the strength of the trade across the globe. We're used to
Mm-hmm.
having the terms kind of be more in our favor. And
Right.
what it was going on was with the EU, not just Germany, but the European Union also, it was not fair. It was like it was leaning so far in everybody else's. So that's how he perceived it, and that's how the economists. That's what he ran on. That right now in the globe, all of the tariffs are pretty much leaning towards everyone else, when that's never been the case. And when it has been the case, we've gone to war behind stuff like that. We've done things behind that, and we're just sitting there like, all right, it's all good. And what he came in was the reason why it seems so sweeping or it seems so crazy is because economists pretty much told him, listen, you only got 4 years, technically
Mm-hmm.
three, so you can kind of do this, or you could just hit a sledgehammer, hit an ant with a sledgehammer. So what he essentially was doing was not just focusing on, yes, a lot of stuff got the price of goods and all this, that, and the other, but what it did was it put us more towards new agreements later, like future agreements. So this isn't all just cause and effect. This isn't I slap you today and then you slap me immediately. No, I slap you today so you don't hit me 10 years from now. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
this slap right now will stop you from will change the balance of power. You understand how that works? I mean, you
But
understand what I'm trying to say
I
with that?
definitely understand the long game of the tariffs. Well,
Right. So
I
that's
understand
what
the
I said.
long-term benefits. I don't necessarily understand exactly how it plays out, but I
No, no, I'm
understand
gonna tell you.
they
Listen, I'm gonna tell you.
go ahead, go
When
ahead, go
they
ahead.
make new agreements, so just I was in a simple sentence. So that when we sit back down to the table and we do these new agreements, I'm not
Hmm.
coming here with my hat in my hand. I'm coming here with a shotgun. And this is how it's gonna go from this point forward. So while
Hmm.
you have it's like the statement, you take a step back to take 10 steps forward.
Hmm.
That's kind of what it was. It was kind of like, let me reacquaint myself. Let not me per se, Trump, he's America figuratively. Let me reacquaint us on a global stage and tell y'all what it exactly is. Like you would even see in how he was acting. Some of that was an act, some of it is just Trump. But even how, like, if you notice when he would take pictures and stuff, now some of this is arrogance. You can never tell what is what. But if you ever, when he was president, did you notice how he would act around those other people?
I
Like if
do
he didn't
remember
speak
that, right?
first,
Like
huh?
he would like they would stick their hand out to shake his hand. He'd walk past them, and
Right. Like
he
it
would.
was kind of changed. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember.
So it was kind of like, so at first, everybody was like, man, this guy's a jerk. But, you know, what I always try to tell people is the politician that you see on the TV, you look at it like this. The person that you're looking at on TV is a mannequin. And picture 1,000 people behind them pulling the strings. So when you say that Kamala did this or Trump did this, you got to remember they have advisors. They're not, you don't really get a chance to see who they are. He's just so, hyper crazy that, it seems like, oh, this is just Trump going crazy, but he reads off teleprompters too. And people like
Hmm.
that stuff. So, well, I thought this was a round table. Why does this mean you?
I'm not sure. I don't
Okay,
know.
good.
Me and you could have a pretty good conversation. I
Okay,
mean,
good.
I did my due diligence. I see our other partner in the chat on the spot. So she's welcome to come up and join the conversation if she
Okay,
like
you got
to.
me for a little bit, and I could do a much longer show another time, but I'm just getting there from the city, and it's
No, you
Hallows
good.
Eve out here, so
No, you
I'm
good.
surprised my
Just
doorbell ain't going crazy.
we can just get into the good parts of the conversation and see where it
Okay,
goes. If
all right.
anybody else can come up there too, but so okay, what is your so I understand what Trump's strengths are. I understand what his perceived weaknesses are. Right? What would you say is a weakness of Trump's policy? Do you actually
Of
think
what
that he?
policy?
Oh, okay.
What
Okay.
policy in
Being
particular?
specific, right?
Yeah.
Do you really see his approach on foreign affairs as the is he really the bully he comes off as in
Yes.
your opinion? Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. He. People like him, narcissistic kind of people. Um, his whole goal is to establish not his personal dominance. And this is what I mean. I want to be very clear. I don't want to speak for other people. I can never tell the character from the person from the president when it comes to uh, former President Trump. So I can never really tell what exactly is going on at any time. I'm not a psychic, but I do know part of what he ran on in his campaign. It was very effective too. Was reestablish that whole "Make America Great Again." It wasn't just for the people in the United States. It wasn't just like us. It was a terrible thing. I mean, it worked. He got elected, so I can't say how terrible it was. But it wasn't just for that. It was global. It
Mm-hmm.
was, yeah, we've been a superpower the last umpteen years, whatever. But it was also to establish like a dominance, like how you would assert yourself, similar to a sport, similar to um, whatever. It's just with him, he uses a lot of rhetoric that people pay attention to, and he says a lot of explosive things. He says a lot of crazy. I mean, you might as well say it. He says a lot of crazy things that
Says some
people
crazy
focus
stuff.
in on. Yeah, he says some reckless, very reckless. He's a habitual line stepper. And what he does, people focus in so much on that that I don't know if he's crazy like a fox is just crazy sometimes. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's a tactic or if it's just rhetoric. It's so scattered all over the place. But I will say this, say what you want. He got elected. Say what you want. The Democratic Party fears that he may get elected again. So no matter what power, whatever you want to say about the man, um, he's effective. He's effective. These last couple weeks in the campaign, not so much. But you know, social media changes has a major effect on elections. So, but I
Yeah.
hope that's the answer to your question.
I mean, that's a good answer, and I'd agree. Like specifically the last, what, about two, maybe just basically since that debate, right? He has said some really wild stuff, and it's
Yeah.
really, and you can get caught up into that. And to be honest with you, the Democrats have said some pretty wild stuff. Um, and then to be honest, I don't want that to be the highlight of the conversation. Now, I understand I have to take it into consideration when I understand who I'm putting into office, but I would like to have the conversation a lot more about their policies and what they could actually do for me now and moving forward. I don't necessarily want to get caught up in, excuse me, comparing him to Hitler and all that kind of stuff. That's like,
Hmm.
that's just you telling me that he is not a nice person in a different way. And I don't need the president to be a nice person. I'll be completely honest with you on that, right? That I understand Trump is, for lack of a better words, an asshole. So that doesn't surprise me, right? So I'm definitely not. How you doing?
Hi,
Yeah,
Mr. Vic. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Glad to be here. So,
That's
we're
what's
talking
up.
about these candidates.
Yep.
So, where are we so far?
Well, right now we're talking about, so the last part of the conversation is I was basically saying that I don't want to get caught up in like the rhetoric of the Democratic Party trying to
Mhm.
paint Trump as a fascist or trying to paint Trump
Mm,
as a Hitler lover, and so I think some of it's relative, and not that it's not important or for it to be discarded, but I'd much rather them run a campaign against his policies. I'd much
yes.
rather be a lot more clear about what it is that they plan to do for me, and
Hmm.
be perfectly honest with you, what they're going to do for people in my similar situation, than just to tell me to vote against Trump because I don't like him. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
I want to be more informed about what you bring to the table rather than fuel my anger that I'm a
Hmm.
little bit like uninformed on, right? I mean, I guess if Trump gets into office and he isn't as, how would you say, he's not a great representation or a person who represents change for lower income people in America, he wouldn't be the first one,
True.
right? He that wouldn't be the first time that we've elected somebody who totally disregarded the lower income people, or didn't produce as many jobs as um, uh, another president in the future or something like that. So I would much rather have the conversation based on those things. And there's some
Yes.
good things that they could talk about, right? The Biden administration actually was really good for the economy. There are some good
Mm,
things that they can talk about. So
yeah.
rather than that, they hang us on this rhetoric of, like I say, Hitler, fascism, and these type of things,
Collusion.
and it's a bit distracting.
Yeah. It's definitely distracting. And I think most of it, unfortunately, has devolved into theater, really, when it comes to our elections, since kind of like television became a thing. And
Mhm.
I say now that social media is a thing, it's even worse. It's even worse. We're caught up in, like you said, rhetoric, talking points, highlights from, interviews or debates, and not really thinking about or talking about policy. I think as a group, we have dropped the ball in one area, which is that we should be driving policy. We should be having asks. Like, what are our collective asks? Where we can say to a candidate, Democrat or Republican, right? Are we willing to deal on either side if we get something for our group, something for our community, something that's going to benefit us? And so, yeah, we have to have something that we want. We have to articulate it, and we have to ask, right? Where I think we like as I don't know, you guys tell me what you think. I think we kind of take a passive role and we see which candidates are nominated, and then we pick from them.
Um, Interesting. I've actually put a lot of thought into that.
Okay.
Um, my first hurdle I see with that is a monolithic type of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I mean by that is like us being all on one accord. To what degree are we saying that synchronized type of thinking is
Mm-hmm.
necessary for us to have politicians that do things for our demographic and for our racial group, for all. That's exactly what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if that's the goal, I think you start off trying to accomplish something that's already very difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult in a lot of other scenarios too, right? Like when we go, we're about to go home for Thanksgiving, right? Do everybody in my family agree on everything? And I would tend to say no, and it's not necessarily 50-50, but as a representation of this monolith that we'd like to have, if we could just look at our own family group, you would see ranges of people in different spectrums of income, ranges of different values and interests.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some households are gonna value education and study time a lot more. Some households are going to value their, I don't know, bravado and maybe even, have that much more of a warrior spirit. And you might have, another household with, they're just, you know, their dad works in the factory, son works in the factory, grandpa works in the factory. So all these different things are going to be different, and all the different scenarios are going to be different. And I think that that's more of a reality right now. Now, in order, now here's the one part that I do agree, right? I
Mm-hmm.
do think that there is some leverage to be had when it comes to asking for things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that may not come in the form of this monolithic thought process
Mm-hmm.
between our entire racial group, but there
Right.
might be a portion of it who is concerned about it enough to actually do something, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
and that may not be the lower income side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That
but
may be the side that's a little bit more business oriented. That
Mm-hmm.
that may not necessarily be looking to leverage policies that are directed towards the lower income side of our racial demographics. So you see what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
there's some balance in that may not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily um, manifest as one um, um, I guess outcome that benefits the entire racial group of Black people. You know what I'm saying?
well,
But
when
all of it helps. It might even start there and end somewhere else. But
Mm-hmm.
that's my personal opinion. I like the monolith. The short version is I'm not sure if the monolith is exactly the best way to gauge if it was successful or not.
when you have when you have a this is a social media generation, it's a microwave generation, it's even worse. Even being an 80s baby, we wanted everything fast. I was like I guess the microwave and all of that kind of stuff, or if it was before that, I don't know. But I mean, now this generation wants it super fast. So if you're trying to get an idea of, if you're trying to get an impression or try to get people, if you're trying to run against Trump and you're trying to say, hey, well, this is what, it's Hitler. See how fast that go? Like it literally has to be, or like with Kamala, it has to be something completely, like all the people are garbage, like they said yesterday. Um, they're highlighting how Biden said if you support Trump, you're garbage. They have to make these catch statements because most times now with how we get our media, it's most of the media is through the phone. Most of the media is social media. Even some of the news things, you say, hey, did you hear what they said? Well, you're really just looking at some meme. You're repeating a meme that you just saw. So a lot of times you're not going to get, you know, deep intellectual things a lot on social media because people want it fast. They want 10-second reels, 30-second reels the most. So things like CNN, you'll get that if you watch all night. But even there, they're trying to go viral. See that's like
Yes.
that's the politic thing. So when they make these flash statements or
Hmm.
these overarching statements, last night on a roundtable that they had on CNN or the day before, there was a guy on there and he was talking to a Pakistani gentleman. It was a few black ladies, a Spanish guy, a white guy, a black man, and a Lebanese man, a Palestinian. I don't want to get it wrong, and he just called them Hamas, like just like that, like just out of the. He called them Hamas. He called them a terrorist. That's what was. And then now they spoke for 2 hours. The only thing you heard about that conversation was him calling that person Hamas. So what I'm
Right.
so my overarching point is you want policy, but policy and politics logic, the way it works. This is why I'm always hesitant to have these conversations because it kind of like I don't like to kind of pull back the curtain when it comes to politics. But this is my wheelhouse per se. If you don't have, you could talk policy all you want. Biden talked policy all he wanted in order to get elected. But if you don't have the bipartisan support to get these things passed, then these are just things that you're saying in order to get. This is what you want to do, right? These are the things. So right now we have a good chance that if Trump, part of the reason why they're going so hard against Trump is because if he is to get elected right now, the betting odds say he's gonna the entire District of Columbia, that whole little area, is going to be Republican. So that's the biggest fear that if he gets in office, um, he doesn't need bipartisan support. If he just gets the Republicans to vote for whatever it is that he wants, it'll just pass. And the Supreme Court is a majority Republican, and I land my plane. So in my last statement, that's the biggest fear with Trump right now. It's not him, because that's not how
Yeah.
the presidency works. He could talk king and all of that stuff. That's flash stuff. In order for him to get this stuff done, that's the fear. And with Kamala Harris, what I fear with a lot of her policies is that if she does become the next president of these United States, her biggest challenge is not going to be policy. All this bipartisan support you see right now for her, all these Republicans crossing the aisle saying they support her, the Bushes, and all of these people saying, yeah, we're going to vote for her. When she or if she gets into office, she's going to go to those same people. She probably won't because she's a veteran, but she's going to go to those same people and they're not going to vote for anything that she tries to put across. Nothing.
Mm.
And it's going to seem like she's failing. It's going to seem like she failed us. I could point out 10 policies right now that Biden ran on that he tried to put across, but he did not have Republican support. And if you don't have any support, Republican support at all, and we happen to own everything in the House besides the presidency, you could talk all you want. You're not going to get it across. So I know you want to have the conversation about policy, but I also want you to understand that policy is not necessarily how the president is going to go. Obama's presidency was shaped by him getting Obamacare across. And the reason why it was shaped by that is the reason why that's what you remember Obamacare, because he was able to go across the aisle, get the bipartisan support for this flash idea, and he got it done. That's his presidency. That's his. They start thinking in legacies, and that's what it is. I learned my point.
So,
for me.
and when you say bipartisan, you're talking about the other party's support on whatever the bill you're trying to pass.
Right. But these things come up for a vote. That's all they do all day long is vote, talk, eat, spend, go on vacations, vote, talk, eat, spend, go on vacations. They do subcommittees. Um, anything that Kamala wants to get across is going to be very difficult for her to get across because I truly think even if he doesn't win the White House, we're going to win everything else and be the majority in the Supreme Court. So that's the checks and balances that she's going to have to face. And that's the biggest fear with Trump. But what they don't understand, or what most people don't understand, is that most Trump doesn't have the full support of the Republican Party. Not
Right.
at all. Not at
Not
all.
at
I
all.
mean, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it every day. I mean, the Trump's rhetoric has, and the things that he said, and some of the things that he's done. You see it in the media. They're not making a lot of this stuff up, but trust and believe. It's also, the reason why they called that rally at Madison Square Garden, it's the first rally since the Nazi Party rally in 19 such and such, right? The reason why they do these connotations is I want you to remember. I brought this up to you before. Remember how Trump treated the press during his presidency. He treated them terribly. Terribly. They don't want to go back through that. He would tell MSNBC, he would tell them, y'all can leave. He wouldn't allow CNN. Seriously, I'm dead serious. He would allow, you can look these things up. He wouldn't allow
He's a
CNN to
wild
ask
guy,
questions.
bro. He's definitely a
Man.
wild guy.
So now when you need these people to support your ideas, well, or support your campaign, now you're gonna be kind of vilified. He made a lot of enemies of Republicans. He made enemies of the Bushes in Texas. He called them all kind of names, and that's why they came out. Yeah, we support Kamala Harris. I've never seen nothing like this, but he's polarizing, and he's polarizing through rhetoric, not so much his actions all the time. What he says, if you pay attention, a lot of times people are upset about the things that he says, because if you're focused on the things that he does, these are things those things. Look at Bannon and the people around him. No person, no president of the United States is a king. They're advisors. There are people that are advising them, and the people that are advising them were a little problematic.
Well, real quickly, because I know you don't have much time left, right?
Mm-hmm.
But based on all the information that's been coming across about the tariffs, do you still believe that they're economists advising him to push the tariffs?
Yes.
Or do you think that I'm almost under the impression that he just likes the reaction he gets when he says tariffs.
No.
Especially, he was just up there on Bloomberg, and the Bloomberg expert was telling him, no, that's not how tariff works. And he was like, no, you're wrong. He was telling the economist to his face that he was wrong. So,
yeah. And that's his spiel. That's his spiel. That's his character. He's gonna play his part. I mean, if Denzel, the Gladiator's coming out in a couple of weeks with Denzel, if he got on there acting like Training Day, we'd all be lost. If Trump, some of this stuff is character, some of it is rhetoric, some of it is fact, but in regards to the tariffs, he doesn't have to be as over the top in regards to tariffs now because of what he did during his presidency. He reset that balance. Now Biden gave some of it back, but he reset that balance. So now that he reset that balance, we don't have to go a full hard right or a full hard left. We could just we've established ourselves this, that, and the other. Right now, you have the attack on the dollar, but that's not that'll be something that he looks at. But he's got bigger fish to fry. You're talking about tariffs. Whichever president wins this United States has some wars that they need to end. They have some real global.
Yes.
We got to pay attention to this to the dollar.
Right now.
There's, the BRICS is a real thing.
That BRICS conference, that's scary, man.
Well, it's not scary. The dollar, too many things. The dollar is the dominant currency on the planet. So you can't, there could be threats at it. It's not nothing to be afraid of. But what I'm saying is these are just there are bigger conversations than the tariffs that we need to have. Immigration there's like 7 things before that that need to be rectified. This migrant situation, there has to, whichever way it's going to go, Kamala or Trump, it needs to be sorted out. But go ahead, bro. I want to hear everybody speak. Don't have to just
some of our biggest trade partners are working with BRICS to try to devalue that dollar. That is scary to me. That's a
Keyword is
whole nother
try.
show.
Keyword is try.
I
I
mean, the
try. If
fact
I
that
wanted
the
to throw
fact
a
that they
rock at the
even
sun, I would
have it
try.
in their head to do it is scary to me. Now, I mean, that's again, that's a whole nother show,
Yeah, we could
right?
do a separate show on that.
Yeah, that's a whole entirely different show. So the last thing I want you to try to address before you can, I guess, start winding it down. I don't want to tell you how long to stay, but I definitely appreciate having a conversation with you because I know you're super well informed about this. And for me, I feel like I don't get to talk to a lot of people who's well informed. They go with the rhetoric, right? They might be able to regurgitate some of the stuff that they might have heard here and there, but they're not some kind of way of attempting to like look into it a little bit deeper. Like, you know what I'm saying? Let's get past the whole fascist Hitler stuff. But anyway, so can you think of ways that, okay, I think it really boils down to this simple notion. If you feel like the government having more money is better than big corporations having more money, right?
Let
That's like,
OwnaSpot answer the question first, then I'll come in.
okay.
The question is,
So the question is, which do you think is better for the economy? Having the government have more money through higher taxes on these big corporations, or having the corporations keep more money by lowering regulations and having tax cuts on big corporations?
that's the big trade-off. And I think it depends on very much on industry, right? So there are some industries you want very heavily regulated, right? And then, or I should say reasonably regulated. I shouldn't say very heavily, but reasonably regulated. And then there are some industries, where you might be able to let up a little bit. I think that it's important to look at what would the benefit be. So some corporations, because they have more money, um, because they're more loosely regulated. I would also look at what do they plan to do with that money? How much of it is being reinvested into the country? How much of that profit that they are creating is being shared with their employees and partners? That kind of thing. So I think, you know, I think that I'm not in favor of either. I'm very case by case, I guess, on most things. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the kinds of questions I would ask, though, if that is the decision that we're looking to make. And the same thing for the government. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
higher taxes, government has more money. Great. What do you plan to do with the money? And then
Right.
I would make a decision based on that.
Right. And I think I like your answer, right? Because I'm kind of torn, right? Because I think that there's potential for both of those, right? If big corporations have more money, potentially, I'm using the word potentially, they can create more jobs.
They
Um,
can
they could potentially
potentially.
increase the wages at those jobs, right? And if the government has that money, they could potentially create more programs. They
Hmm.
could potentially, put out, some more incentives for being in certain fields, or, those apprenticeship programs, those training programs that used to be. I know in Louisiana specifically, they used to have a lot of apprentice programs for electricians and a lot of those trade schools, and they all went away because the funding went away, right? But so there's the potential for good on both sides, and I've seen good on both sides. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Now, from what I can say, I think that I am more in favor for the right administration to have more money. You know what I'm saying,
Right.
with those higher taxes. And so the question would be, do I think Kamala would be the right administration? And it's still tough to say, right? But as far as like the big corporations, I'm a little bit less confident in them creating more jobs than I am the right administration creating more programs. So how would you answer that question, Braz? Which one do you think is better? I guess, and to be more specific, for like maybe middle income, lower income people, for the government to have more money or for big businesses to have more money?
Corporations every time, all the time, and less government. You already know what I'm gonna say to this. It's not.
I
It's
do,
not.
I do.
I'm never a person that's gonna say give the government more power. Give the government more money to decide. What it is, because one of the things that people talk about is you talk about taxes, higher taxes. Well, if you have more government programs, I mean, these are things that are like simple math. I trust businesses more than anything, because one of the things our government, because of checks and balances, does not do is it's not very efficient.
Mm.
It's not very efficient at all. It's not like a corporation, like, where you can sit, have a meeting, implement a plan, get it done. How many times have you seen? I mean, it happens in every government per se, every presidency, not just Republican or Democrat. But how many times have you seen? Well, we got this bill we got to pass, but we're on vacation. We have this. We got to get this done, and then you have filibuster. So in any given time, I'm more about innovation. I'm more about more freedom, more choice. Um, and anytime, less taxes, obviously, but anytime you have too much power and you start talking about overreach and things like that, you start stifling kind of the economic ideas that move us forward. The government has great ideas, but the government also follows behind a lot of ideas and corporations. How long, one of the best ones, look it up. The government came up with some kind of cash thing, right? To send people to send money to each other through the phones, this, that, and the other. Now, do you trust
Okay.
Cash App or do you trust that?
Yeah,
They
you got a
will
point.
just be following them. Yeah, they normally are just
Got
following
a
the
point.
model of something that's already established. You understand what I'm saying? So, in my eyes, in every case, I always say, um, give people the chance. Now, when we talk about corporations, when you talk about they're putting money, that also creates jobs and people get jobs. I'm not a person. I understand that there are situations where people need welfare. It is what it is. There are situations where people need help. There is what it is, but I think in certain situations, as we're seeing now with even with Trump, and did you see that PPP loan list that came out like 2 or 3 days ago? Like, I
Mm-mm.
It's
actually saw people
crazy.
that I know, right? I saw people that I know on that
Yeah.
list that I know they didn't have a business. They didn't have, like, I know for a
I
fact.
knew they would make it public, and I knew they would
Yeah.
put people in jail. Back when they offered it, I said,
Hmm.
mark my words. I said, they're
Yeah.
going to lock people up for this, and it's going to become public, everybody who got it.
I
Mm.
had the opportunity. I had the opportunity to receive PPP loans, and I just chose not to take it because I understood that the amount of fraud, the amount of theft, and then on top of that, a lot of times during COVID, and I'm not saying my situation was the same as somebody else's, but I just downsized. I downsized. I changed my way of thinking, and now you're seeing corporations that didn't. There are certain corporations that didn't realize that the majority of the business that they did was online until COVID happened and people could only shop online. So now you're seeing people, all these stores, brick and mortar, they're all closing locations. They're not closing their business, they're just closing locations. How many restaurants do you go to um, where there's 1,000 DoorDash orders and nobody in the restaurant? There's kiosks now where you order things because most times
Yep.
people just coming to pick up orders. So my point is this: I'm always going to be for less government. I don't think giving to it's never going to be perfect, and I think that's where I want to speak to your point earlier when you were talking about a monolith. We could say that Black people aren't a monolith. I wish I would have been online and able to have the conversation when Obama and Magic Johnson came out for Black men not supporting Kamala Harris. I really wish I could have went live during that time because if you look at the actual statistics, and we're not talking about voting, this is just polls. But when you look at the actual statistics, She has 90% of the black vote, roughly.
That's
Roughly.
interesting.
She's going to dominate the black vote in this election. Where she's even getting great support with white women. Where she's losing, technically, is white men. White men technically would be the lowest demographic. Now, off the top of my head, I mean, you can look up these statistics, or somebody else could correct me later. But based off what I saw when at the time when it was happening, white men is where she was failing to support, and they didn't go online and ask for white men. They didn't go online and ask for white people. Now, here's the thing: she can get 90% of the black vote, 80% of the black vote. That doesn't. I'm not gonna say it doesn't mean anything, but she could get it and lose, because that's not necessarily, you pay attention to percentages, statistics, things like that. So I had an issue with it, in regards to that, but that's off the subject. But my main point is less government, and that if she's really about what she's about, the main reason, or any problems or any challenges that people have with Kamala, are challenges and problems that the Democratic Party created when they just installed her as the next nominee for that party, rather than giving people a chance. And I know it was so late in the game, but they knew Biden was problematic 2 years ago, 3 years ago, probably when he was running for president. They saw these signs of where he is mentally right now. So when you just install somebody that you just don't know her policy, you don't really know that much about her, other than attorney general, the things that everybody keeps saying. When you don't know that, it's always going to be problematic. It's always going to be an issue, because no one knew her policy, and no one's ever seen her as presidential, because she's never made it past the primaries.
Right.
So it's a logic. I've been so I work in politics. I work with politicians. This is the most draining political season
Yeah.
I've ever been a part of. Ever. You can't escape it. Every day, one day it's Hitler, the next day Puerto Rico's garbage, the next day, and the thing is people like you, and probably OwnaSpot also, who are looking for, meat and potatoes. They're looking for policy. And that's why I'm trying to tell you, this isn't like other conversations. Politics is a theater, way more than it is
Yeah.
a process per se. It's and like the young lady brought up a great point. They don't have the time in a 10-second reel to give you what you're looking for. And when they go to these rallies, these are people that are not looking for her to say, well, line item A, point 1B, I'm going to do such and such and such and such. That's not what it's for. It's to bring out the Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion, and, to have a guy who does roast for a living open up for you at Madison Square Garden and Hulk and Hogan. It has to be all of those things, because the people that they're going for, and I said this months ago, and you'll see this at the election. The government, the United States is going to vote. I've been talking long, let my plane. The government, the United States, you'll see in the next couple of days at the national election, is going to be split down the middle voting. It's not battleground states. It's the undecided voters. Can you get them out to vote, and can you get them to vote for you? And that's who will determine the election, because people that are Republican are still going to vote for Trump. Most of those people that are coming out saying, yeah, we support Kamala, they're going to vote for Trump. And then everybody that's going to vote Democratic is going to vote Democratic. It's going to be about 50-50 roughly. Then you get the Electoral College with these swing states. But my key to you is, I'm telling you, it's not these states. Pennsylvania, Atlanta, it's not these states. It's a couple others. Wisconsin. It's not those states that he's going to have to win, or she's going to have to win. It's the everyday voter watching social media that is willing to go stand in that line and willing to go vote for the other person. And that's how you'll get your winner. It won't be anything that's said. It won't be their policy logic. It's whoever wins the theater. I've been getting bombarded with ads today with Obama and Kamala asking for $5, $20, $5, $20. Anybody can give five, and the reason why it repulses me is because the election is what 3-4 days away, but they're
Right. What
even
you gonna do
using
with
that
another?
as a bargaining point because it starts off with Trump is pummeling us in battleground states because he's backed by billionaires. They want you to hate the billionaires while we're on a platform right now, or YouTube from a billionaire. We
Right.
order our things from Amazon, which is from a billionaire. I'm on an iPhone, billionaire. I'm watching sports teams owned by billionaires. So they're even trying to demonize billionaires while you're asking me for $5 or $20 to help you for an election that's 4 days away. See how it's all rhetoric. So I try not to pay too much attention to it.
Yeah, that was that's like the most surprising thing to me, right? And I've been trying to do as strict as I can. I want to know as much about the policies and the breakdowns, all these terms I'm not familiar with. I told you this was like the first time I've really taken, the presidential elections more serious than just voting for my party, right? I wanted to really know why don't they like Trump? I want to really know what do they mean when they say, Kamala flip flops a lot. Like I wanted to see what she flip flopped on, so on and so forth. And I was very surprised that how much of a role the theater plays in it, as you say. Like that's a big.
The
I had
theater
no
don't
idea.
play a role in it, Logic. It's the
It is.
theater.
It is the
It
theater.
just yeah. It's not like it's like
It is the
oh
theater.
the theater is the
It's yeah.
tires on
It's
the
the
car. No,
policy
the
that don't really
theater is
play a
the
role,
car.
right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, like it's the policy that doesn't really play a role. That's why they can go to those rallies and ask people what is the policy, and they have no idea. They don't even
Exactly.
know. They don't even know what the what's that term? The dang man, the ethnic hires. What's it called? When you
DEI.
have
DEI.
the yeah, yep, they don't even know what that is. Right? They don't even
Yeah.
know what that stands for, what it means. So they just completely lost on all the nuance of what it is their candidate is even up there saying. They're just cheering for, voice inflections, loud words, and they kind of get the idea of Trump could be like this bully figure to other countries, and they might get that much, right? But nothing really substantial.
The funniest thing Brass said is that is true, and I learned actually not too long ago, is that people who openly support Democratic candidates actually vote Republican. There are a lot of people like that. You will be surprised. Um, and I think, honestly, that's like a lot of Democrats, they're shocked when Trump got into office in the first place because there was so much support, open support on the other side. But these people hold really different beliefs and they vote very differently. They might they might not present outwardly as someone who supports Trump, but they do, and they're going to vote for him.
I can see that. I can definitely see
Because even that is the theater. Let me ask you a
Yes.
question, right? What George Bush and that family are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If they did trust Kamala at her word based on her policies, I'm gonna just ask a simple question, Logic, or OwnaSpot, whoever wants to answer. What billionaire in
that.
their right mind would vote for Kamala's tax policy?
Her which
What
policy?
her
You
tax
said what
her
billionaire
Tax.
would
economic
do it if
policies?
that'd
Yeah.
be voting against their own interests at that point.
They'd literally be voting against their own family and their own future. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
So people, but in the same token, I watched the football game the other day. The other day, a guy got on the game. I mean, Nick Bosa, the Ohio State University, he played for the 49ers. During the interview, all he did was he showed up with they were interviewing Brock Purdy, and he just came into the interview with a MAGA hat, a black and white MAGA hat. and the NFL is talking about suspending him. Now, I get it because, they don't want to take political stances. It's ironic that he plays for the 49ers that Colin Kaepernick played for. So, it's a little crazy. But this is what I mean by publicly, it's just not good to support Trump publicly anymore. It's just not. It's not good to, it's not because you have to align with the rhetoric. You have to align with what he's saying. You have to align with some of the things that he's the criminal stuff. He's a felon, all this, that, and the other. But in the very same token, when you vote your interests.
Yes.
Vote your interests. If it's the best, if whatever candidate, if Cuban, he'll say things like it's the lesser of two evils, and he's not 100% wrong, right? But in the same token, when you go to vote, when people ask me, like, my first thing is just vote, because most of the people that I talk to, and like I told you, Logic, I don't really like having the conversations about politics with people that don't vote, because it's kind of like okay, well, we just playing here, and I don't feel like playing all the time. Sometimes I feel like playing, sometimes I don't. So if you're gonna vote, my message to a person was, whether you vote for Kamala, whether you vote for Donald, just vote, participate in the process. Don't just just kind of do the I hate the world thing. And then the second thing is, and that's not for you, Cuban. I was kind of highlighting one of the things you said. Vote your interests. Vote if there would be no reason for me, based on the policy that Kamala Harris has presented, for me to ever vote for Kamala Harris. It has nothing to do with her race. It has nothing to do with her being a female. It's just based on the interest and how I live my life. I vote Republican. I'm not a MAGA. I'm not a January 6th or nothing. I don't support any of that stuff. But what I do support is anyone. If Kamala Harris's policy supports you and your family, then that's who you should vote for. And you shouldn't give a damn what anybody thinks about it. You shouldn't care about the theater of it. I just don't think it's ideal for I don't think her policies or the Democratic Party's policies are ideal for me. And I definitely don't want to vote Democratic based on, just understanding that they may not win anything. They may not win anything else there. Just picture that, Logic. She wins presidency of the United States, and on the
and
same
can't do
night we
any of that
find
stuff
out.
if
Yeah,
she
we
runs.
on the same night that she wins the president of the United States, we find out. We already know the Supreme Court is Republican. So on that same night, we find out that she pretty much can't win anything else. Anything for the first 4 years, because you really got your transition period. First, she's gonna have to. It's good that she's going along with she's replacing Biden, but she doesn't even agree with everything that he says. Matter of fact, a lot of the things he says, she doesn't agree with, but that's why she doesn't do interviews a lot, or the interviews have to stay very set. Remember I was telling you about the teleprompter?
Yeah,
It-
she's a teleprompter for sure.
yeah, she cannot speak off the teleprompter. Here's the thing, because if you look at her policies, a lot of the policies that she wants to put forward aren't they don't run lockstep with Biden. They don't.
Right. Okay.
They don't. And
Yeah,
and
she's
and,
very
and
she actually tried to get away from that a little while ago because she didn't want to be associated with that Biden administration, and a lot of stuff she
exactly.
was saying was too close. So she started kind of like easing her way away from a lot of that stuff. Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago.
And
I
here comes
actually
the
listened to one
theater
of her
though.
rallies today, and I could have sworn I was listening to a replay of something from like 3 weeks ago. She literally it has the same talking points, same voice inflection on the same quotes. But she really is a teleprompter. She really, really is a teleprompter.
They asked
Crazy.
her what she thought. And now, while we're calling her a teleprompter, I want to say this publicly. And she's brilliant. She's very intelligent. She's very well spoken, no matter what anybody says. For her to make it to the circles that she made it to, she's a amazing woman. Black, white, Indian, other whatever you. I'm not even getting into the race. I'm just saying she's an amazing woman. But I will say this, and she cannot go against Biden publicly. She cannot. She can't. She can't. And here's the thing: it's not just because it's something with her. It's just politically that would be suicide to do. So that's part of the reason why she doesn't speak off the teleprompter. She doesn't. The one thing she doesn't do, she doesn't come off well. That laugh is just terrifying. Um, some of the things, the way she answers questions is not necessarily ideal for most people, but it is what it is. But I like to say this is why I like to talk about Kamala public. You know, privately, I've told you, Logic, you've been trying to get me to do these kinds of shows for a while, and it's just, to me, the optics is just a black man coming online speaking ill against Kamala Harris is just that's the headline. It's not, you know, and that's why you get an Obama or why you get a Magic Johnson, you know, spewing the rhetoric that somehow black men don't support Kamala Harris, but for some reason she's going to get roughly 80 to 90% of the black vote no matter what she does. So these are talking points. See, I understand that part, so I don't fall for the rest of it. And coming online trying to disrespect her or say anything negative about her, anything you say negative is going to come off as disrespect. But I want to say publicly, I think she's brilliant. She was attorney general of one of the largest. I mean, I'm not a geographer or whatever, but one of the largest states in the 52, whatever you want to call it. And then on top, she did some things that are problematic. But what do you think she had to do to get to these positions? She made it to vice president of the United States. Now, forget about her race, this, that, and the other. Just a female, period, in these United States made it to vice president of the United States. And she very well may be the next president of the United States. So I don't like to talk ill of her publicly. I just don't agree with her policy, and it's just not for me. But on a second note, because I told you I only had about an hour, I'll be more available. It's just election season is very difficult for me. I got to be back in New York City at 4:00 in the morning. I want to say publicly, Logic, I've been watching from afar. I love what you've been doing online. OwnaSpot, I just watched y'all show a couple of days ago. I think you killed it. I think you killed it. And I think one of the things that's more important on any topic is a female perspective and a female thought on how some of these things are going on, because at the end of the day, I've been married for a while. I run my household and I don't, if you understand what that means.
Shout out to the queen.
Yep. I could be as gangster as I want to be and talk, but I'm as afraid of my wife as my children are. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I have common sense. So hopefully I can get together. We could do a show another time, but I got to dip.
I appreciate you following through, Brass, man. We got like 5 days left. Maybe
set it up. I think I'm gonna go live during the election. I think I might do the whole election, probably start at like 6 o'clock and just go to about 12, 1 o'clock at night. I was thinking about doing that.
Yeah, hopefully we can fit one in, because there is some really cool stuff to kind of go over with, and I think that we kind of like scratched the surface. Like, we haven't really, I tried to get you to talk about policy, and the real stories has been the theater, right? The theater has been super crazy on both sides a little bit, right? Like you said, we didn't even get to touch on Obama giving this stern warning to black men, right? And what are the implications of that? What does all of that mean? Why is he even doing all that?
That was wild.
Do you understand what I mean when I say that, though, Logic? She's gonna get, the demographic that they need to go after, they're not even speaking to. It's white men.
She was gonna get that by default.
Yeah, sure. It's white men. She's gonna get coming out of only people. This is another thing with the what is Cuban called the conscience community. The when they go into this black, white, and this, that, and the other, to the average person, you walk down the street, Kamala Harris, no matter what you think she is, she's black. She may not look black, she may not be black to you, whatever you want to call it, she's black. And when they go to the polls and vote, a lot of people, the majority of black people, think they're voting for a black woman. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we try to do this thing, as a Democrat, she's going to get roughly 80 to 90% of the black vote.
Even black men, Brass?
Yeah, well,
Mm-hmm.
she's gonna. I don't know if it's gonna be 80 to 90% of black
Thank
men.
you.
No. We agree there. I think I can come back and get actual stats. I put that on my computer on my phone. She's not gonna get 80 to 90% of black people. But let me ask you this question. I mean, black men. But if she does get 80 to 90% of black men, there's a still good chance she may lose. It's not. It's not.
Mhm.
That's not the demographic that. If she can get 50% of white men, it'll be a landslide. So the
That's
demographic,
an uphill battle for her, though, for
no, it's
sure.
an uphill battle for a Democrat. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
Yes.
It's not. Yeah,
Let
it's
alone a
a
woman of color who is the
yes.
Democratic nominee. Yeah, that's really
Right.
tough.
No. So I mean, we can. I'll come back on better prepared with actual stats. But I will. The one thing I will say now, just in closing, is I'm glad that you came up and spoke with us, because a lot of times we were having these hip hop conversations. We were having a lot of conversations, and I look on these panels on different things, and a lot of times it's just a lot of just men talking about men.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
trust me, we might be, we might be pretty intelligent, but the we need the other perspective. So I appreciate it. I'm glad you and Hits got together. So I will be in the Discord tomorrow, Logic. Just hit me up. And thank y'all.
Thank you, Brass.
Appreciate it, Brass. And